We finally got more information about that super shady subpoena. Shady tactics, untraceable tactics, anything they can do to use their power to shut up and intimidate and get control of Justin Baldoni.
What if I told you a Hollywood A-lister used a secret shell company to subpoena private messages? Blake Lively is under fire, and Judge Lyman is furious. Was this legal move a stroke of genius or a step too far? Stick around because what we uncover will leave you questioning everything.
You can tell us, you were talking to the Daily Mail about this on Wednesday, correct? So they had been working and knew about this before, I guess, last night, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So the reporter, Josh Boswell, saw me on your show, and he reached out to me. And on Wednesday around, noon, 1 p.m. LA time, we were talking, and he had told me, listen, what I'm about to tell you cannot reveal until we publish. So, but yeah, everything, he was talking to me about these details that he had learned back on Wednesday, midday, LA time.
What if the biggest mystery in Hollywood isn't about affairs or scandals, but a faceless, nameless company shifting the playing field? Enter Vanzan Inc. Never heard of it? That's the point. Tied directly to Blake Lively, this shadowy shell company has been quietly filing lawsuits, stirring up controversy, and leaving everyone asking, why the secrecy? Why this legal smokescreen now? Vanzan Inc. operates like a ghost. No employees, no product, no public face. Just a strategic tool in what many are calling a calculated game. It's not uncommon for celebrities in Hollywood to lean on intermediary companies to protect their interests or conceal involvement. But here's where it gets tricky. Unlike other well-known entities used for privacy, Vanzan seems to specialize in the courtroom. And when it comes to the "it ends with us" controversy, its fingerprints are everywhere. From spearheading lawsuits to making major legal moves on behalf of Blake Lively, this company isn't just watching from the sidelines, it's orchestrating key plays. You're probably wondering what ties this back to the film. Well, there's speculation. Some say Vanzan was used to create a legal buffer between Lively and the media storm around the movie. It's almost like a suit of armor, shielding her from direct scrutiny while still controlling the narrative. But others are skeptical. Could this really just be about privacy? Or is there something more manipulative going on? Hollywood insiders are buzzing and the whispers aren't flattering. This isn't the first time a shell company like this has raised eyebrows. From production companies hiding whose money is funding what films to aliases used in real estate deals, celebrities have always found ways to keep their business private. Remember when Beyoncé purchased her mansion through a separate LLC to avoid media coverage? Or how Taylor Swift locked down trademark rights under various corporate names? These practices can tread a thin line between clever strategy and shady tactics. But here's where Vanzan steps across that line, critics argue. This isn't just avoiding paparazzi or protecting assets. When it slides into the court system, when subpoenas are issued, it stops feeling clever and starts feeling invasive. The big question is, why would Blake Lively's team fight so hard to hide behind Vanzan Inc? If this is all above board, why not confront the lawsuits directly? One theory suggests the company exists to keep damaging details out of public records. After all, it's much easier to deny involvement when the trail leads back to a faceless corporation. But there's also the risk of this plan backfiring. Judges don't take kindly to legal games, and as this case heats up, Vanzan's role is coming under intense scrutiny. That scrutiny might just reveal more than Blake Lively's team ever intended. And if that happens, the consequences won't just be legal. They'll spill over into the public's perception as well. So what's next? It's one thing to use legal shields, but as we'll see, the methods taken by Vanzan and Blake's team might have pushed the boundaries one step too far.
So now that we've gotten this mystery lawsuit, seems to have been figured out, this subpoena came from, for those of you who are unclear what we're talking about, Ron was on last time we talked about this, trying to get the cell phone records from Jennifer Abel. They said they got a subpoena, which also allowed the New York Times to do this as well. Well, we finally now have learned what this so-called case was that everyone's wondering, well, where did this come from? It was from a case from Vanzan Inc. versus John Doe's 1 through 10. And more people did their due diligence to figure out, well, who's this Vanzan? As we sort of learned out that was a company of Blake Lively's. As more and more went through the state of California and other sort of filings, it was owned by Blake Reynolds. Her married name as the chief CEO, secretary, financial officer, etc. So it has now been confirmed that yes, this Vanzan versus the John Doe's is clearly a Blake Lively lawsuit, but clearly was filed without anybody's actual name to skirt the issue and try to get this more secretive. Now, this case is now, I think, already been dismissed, right, Ron? So this has already been filed and done with the date of September 27th in New York. Can you explain now why this is a problem for Blake Lively's team in your mind?
Well, it's an ethical problem. Well, there's a lot of problems. So the optics of this are terrible. This lends to the credence that this was obviously created not with any good faith basis of a dispute between Vanzan and Doe's. Any lawyer will tell you, you do not file a complaint if you don't know the name of the person that you are suing, unless you're trying to protect that person's identity for some reason, which if you're pissed off enough to sue them, you probably don't care about their identity. So that's red flag number one. Red flag number two, the context of the complaint are almost nil. There's no really actual facts. And which you have to put something. It doesn't have to be Baldoni level, 600 paragraphs level of detail, but even in 4 paragraphs, you can have some type of understanding like, oh, okay, this happened between these two people, and there's a dispute about this specific thing, and no one has to guess as to what it is. And also that there are no Does, and this was done this quickly. I don't know how fast things work in New York, but once you put something in the system, in the court system, things are done automatically on their end. For instance, it gets assigned to a judge, that judge gets it, his clerk sets hearings as to manage the case, where's proof of service. I believe the dismissal of the complaint was in December, just before the New York Times publication. That's my understanding of what it is. Now, it's probably in the article itself, and I spoke to Mr. Boswell, Wednesday, and I could be wrong on the dates, but my memory is that it was dismissed voluntarily by Vanzan Inc. just before the New York Times article came out. Are you looking for?
Imagine this. One bold legal request that strips back the curtain hiding Hollywood's secrets and exposes just how far someone might go to control a narrative. That's exactly what happened when Vanzan Inc., the mysterious company tied to Blake Lively, issued a subpoena targeting Stephanie Jones, a former publicist for Jennifer Abel. And the target? Her private communications. We're talking text messages, emails, personal content that most people assume would be off limits. But in this case, Blake's legal team wanted it all, especially anything connected to the brewing tension between her and Justin Baldoni. People weren't just shocked, they were furious. Critics lashed out, calling the subpoena unethical and invasive, with some going as far as accusing Blake's team of weaponizing the legal system. The request didn't just aim at standard evidence. It specifically sought out messages that painted a behind-the-scenes picture of what was happening during the time the "It Ends With Us" controversy exploded into public view. Was this an attempt to dig up dirt, discredit Baldoni, or even craft a narrative that made Blake look like the victim? Whatever the reasoning, the move was bold and invasive enough to spark outrage in both legal and public circles. Here's why subpoenas like this are so controversial. In the celebrity world, they've been used to pry into extremely personal areas of people's lives, giving the issuing party access to information that could be exploited. Remember when Johnny Depp's legal team subpoenaed Disney emails during his trial to uncover whether Amber Heard directly caused him to lose a major role? Or the chaos when private texts between Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt leaked during their custody battle? Cases like these show the high stakes. Once those communications are handed over, they're hard to keep under wraps, no matter how private or irrelevant they are. So the potential for misuse is immense. And here's where things take a turn against Blake's camp. Judge Lyman, overseeing the case, wasn't exactly impressed with the tactics. In fact, his reaction made it clear he was viewing this subpoena very critically. He questioned the legality of using a shadow company like Vanzan Inc. to facilitate such an aggressive move, and expressed concerns about potential ethical violations. This wasn't just a slap on the wrist, it was a spotlight on how far Blake's team might have gone to gain an upper hand. This reaction could spell trouble for Vanzan Inc. and Blake's entire strategy. Legal analysts are already speculating the evidence they've gathered might not even hold up in court. If Judge Lyman decides the methods used were out of bounds, everything linked to this subpoena could be ruled inadmissible. That wouldn't just damage the case, it could completely unravel it. But the real bombshell? The judge's sharp words didn't stop there. What he said next about Blake Lively's legal team is where things get truly intense.
Reporters are confirming that too. Yes, this case was dismissed. Unclear when, but from what I gathered as well, right before the CRD was filed in New York from Blake.
So that, and it, that lends credence to this complaint. This Vanzan complaint was created purely with an ulterior motive, which has its ethical implications, if that's true, with regards to the New York State Bar. Probably as Vanzan Inc. probably has some implications. Nobody should be wasting the court's time. There are some serious implications there. And when you file something for an ulterior motive, you're still engaging, I believe, in self-help in the current lawsuit that is in the New York District Court. So there's a whole can of worms that have been opened by this, that this is not over in any sense of the word. I think there's a lot of there's going to be a lot of questions asked by the Manat folks who signed this, who signed off on this, who filed this, and I would not want to be in their position right now.
Well, so it's interesting because now I have questions, because as we have both Brian Friedman and Lively's lawyers have sort of commented on this. Brian Friedman told the Daily Mail, this appears to be an end around, skirting the process to be able to secretly get these documents without having to give anyone notice. That would be an abusive process, and we intend to take all action allowable under the law. As you're saying, echoing what you're saying, Friedman said he had no knowledge about the lawsuit until Daily Mail contacted him. Now, Lively's lawyers said the newly uncovered lawsuit was common and entirely appropriate and accused Friedman of faux outrage. So, I mean, look, and that's where I'm at. Like, why would they do this? They clearly knew this could come. They clearly knew by saying there's a subpoena, someone eventually could find that said subpoena. They had to know this could be uncovered. If this is such a mistake and impossible and not appropriate and going to get them in trouble, why would they have done it? Any thought process?
So by talking to some other folks, I've learned that there was a confidentiality agreement between Stephanie Jones and Baldoni. So if there is a confidentiality agreement, as most celebrities require the people that work for them,
because she not to interrupt, but yeah, because she was his PR person for a time. Correct. Yes.
If she were to voluntarily give internal communications between Stephanie Jones and Baldoni to a third party, regardless of the purpose of whether being asked for, that would be a violation of that confidentiality agreement and subject her to litigation for violating the confidentiality agreement. So the subpoena would, in theory, insulate her from a lawsuit of violating the breach of confidentiality agreement, because NDAs do not protect anyone against disclosure of unlawful conduct, right? NDAs do not. So for her to go like, listen, I'm allowed to produce these things because I'm being compelled by a court of law under penalty of contempt, then she can say, listen, yeah, I have this contractual obligation to preserve our communications, Justin, but look, I had to. Look, there was a subpoena. But the problem is this: when this was issued, supposedly issued legitimately according to Lively's team, they had to give notice to Baldoni, as he is the consumer that's being affected by this request of documents, which didn't happen. And that is another wrinkle against either Lively's team or the attorneys that were handling this, because that is, again, anyone who does civil litigation, when you look for third-party information, if you believe it affects hospital records, right? I want the defendant's hospital records, the plaintiff's hospital records. I go to the hospital, but I give notice to the patient who happens to be the party. I'm trying to get your records for that person to try to assert their rights. It's the same thing here. And the lack of notice to the consumer, who here would be Justin, is, again, part of this longer thread of not being transparent and not doing everything completely above board.
Well, it's odd because it seems to be the same thing they're accusing Justin of doing, which is shady tactics, untraceable tactics, anything they can do to use their power to shut up and intimidate and get control of Justin Baldoni.
When Judge Lyman stepped into this case, he brought a reputation that immediately raised the stakes. Known for his no-nonsense approach to complex legal battles, he's the kind of judge who won't hesitate to call out questionable tactics. And that's exactly what happened as he dug into the actions of Blake Lively's legal team. The subpoena to Stephanie Jones may have looked like a routine legal move on the surface, but Judge Lyman wasn't buying it. Instead, he called these actions out for what they really were: a step too far. During the hearing, the judge didn't hold back. He openly questioned the ethical boundaries of how the evidence was being collected. "Fishing expeditions like this don't belong in my courtroom," he said, targeting the vague and sweeping approach used to request private messages. Lyman then went further, suggesting that the legal team's reliance on a company like Vanzan Inc. to issue the subpoena made the entire effort look deliberately obscure. This wasn't just a warning, it was a starting point for what could become a much deeper evaluation of whether Blake's team crossed the line completely. Accusations about the use of shell companies in high-profile lawsuits are one thing, but when a judge points out the possibility of impropriety, it changes everything. Lyman called attention to how the methods used by Blake's team didn't just raise ethical concerns. They might have gone against established legal norms. This scrutiny threatens to undermine the validity of anything obtained through the subpoena. If the court determines the tactics were improper, it could mean all that carefully gathered evidence is thrown out completely. And to top it off, it paints Blake Lively's legal approach as aggressive and overly calculated, something that could seriously impact how the public perceives her role in this controversy. This isn't the first time Hollywood has pushed the legal envelope in a way that caused backlash. Celebrities working through teams of high-priced lawyers sometimes assume they can operate on the edges of the law, but courts have proven they're willing to push back. Judge Lyman's words echo a broader frustration with how far some in the industry will go to protect or project an image, often stepping into the murky space between privacy concerns and outright manipulation. The fine line between a sharp legal strategy and misconduct isn't one everyone gets away with walking. For Blake Lively, this moment could set a dangerous precedent. If her team is found guilty of unethical behavior, it won't just hurt her legal case. It could ripple across her career. Lyman's stance makes one thing clear. This isn't just a courtroom battle about subpoenas. It's a question of integrity, and the implications go beyond the movie or the lawsuit. But the most startling revelations might still be ahead, especially when we look at the leaked messages tied to this case that are lighting up conversations online.
But if it becomes part of the trial, then it is a public property.
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
I'm sure people are curious. And last thing while we're here, because it's like all of this is so related and so important, because these text messages that they got, which now they use this weird fake subpoena to do, omitted things. Who actually gave what text to who becomes the big question, right? Because New York Times is saying, well, we just published what we were given, and then Jones works, and there's Blake's team. Like, what is your suspicion? I mean, we all assume, oh, they were all working in tandem and it was all sort of crooked, or Blake's team was overseeing it. But from your sort of legal fair perspective, I mean, isn't it strange that Blake's team didn't put the full context in? Do you really think there's a version of this where they didn't go through it all with a fine-tooth comb before publishing it? Wouldn't they have been the ones that pick and chose which ones came through?
Yeah. So that's not really a legal thing. That's a tactical thing. They made this tactical decision to omit things, and I think we discussed it right before we came on. I believe that Lively did this the way she did the Civil Rights Department complaint. That's supposedly confidential, and she put it out, everything in there. I really think she picked this fight through that mechanism and process in order to anticipate a backlash and her asserting the privileges that we are now seeing. But it was not well thought out, and it's not an absolute privilege, and you cannot abuse the legal process. So the problem for Lively's team is we just found out about an initial abuse of the legal process, a misuse, let's call it a misuse of the legal process with this Vanzan complaint, and then the Texas thing that happened. So I think she thought she was going to get away with this and have these protections, and it has not worked out. And I don't know who told her this, but she did not, or her team did not think this through by omitting stuff, because whenever you omit stuff, the other person has the whole thing. They have the whole thing. Like, you don't be stupid. You can't just delete stuff and go, look what I have. I'm like, yeah, I have the rest of it. Look, like it's like a no duh. It's crazy.
This whole case.
What if the real chaos behind It Ends With Us wasn't the lawsuits or the legal maneuvers, but a carefully orchestrated campaign to control the narrative? That's exactly what people are asking after leaked messages sent to TikTok creator Nadia G. Reeds hit the internet. These weren't just random texts, they hinted at something far bigger, a deliberate effort to discredit Justin Baldoni, frame Blake Lively as the victim, and shift attention in a way that raised a lot of eyebrows. The message sent to Nadia was plain, yet loaded. A lot happened on set that will eventually come out. But if I were you, I'd take those videos down. I can promise you wholeheartedly that the female cast members are victims. It didn't stop there. The sender doubled down, adding, Blake is as sweet and innocent as ever, and you are correct that her husband absolutely is there to protect her. This direct response wasn't just about defending Lively. It was thinly veiled as a warning, especially considering Nadia's TikToks were racking up millions of views for criticizing the film's marketing choices. Now, let's break this down. Nadia's original criticism focused on the tone-deaf way It Ends With Us was being promoted. Instead of centering the film's core themes, which revolve around domestic violence, she pointed out how much of the marketing seemed to push Blake Lively's personal brands. The approach, she claimed, shifted the focus away from the serious subject matter and made it feel more like a fashion campaign. Her takes weren't coming out of nowhere either. With almost 4 million views, her TikToks reflected a growing public sentiment. But this message, the one asking her to take those videos down, didn't target her points directly. Instead, it dropped vague allegations about the set and made Blake the centerpiece of victimhood. What makes the timing of the message feel so strategic is how close it came to the film's premiere. A preemptive strike, perhaps. By painting Baldoni as the supposed antagonist and framing Blake and others as victims, the message seemed crafted to steer conversations away from marketing blunders and onto a new narrative before the movie hit theaters. The intent seems obvious. Silence criticism early, muddy the waters, and skew public opinion in a way that could benefit Lively's image and the film itself. But if the message's goal was to intimidate Nadia into staying quiet, it backfired. Instead of stepping back, she doubled down. As an advocate for survivors of domestic abuse, Nadia remained firm, stating she wouldn't shy away from calling out issues in marketing just because of behind-the-scenes drama. That decision to keep speaking out, despite the warnings, speaks volumes about the transparency she's committed to offering her growing audience. And that's where the leaked message becomes more significant. It's not just gossip, it could be evidence. Situations like these aren't unprecedented in Hollywood. Private conversations, emails, or texts have exposed behind-the-scenes power plays before, often reshaping public opinion about the people involved. Whether it's emails revealing internal feuds during the Sony hack, or leaked texts from Amber Heard and Johnny Depp's legal battles, messages like this rarely stay contained once they're out. They ignite questions, amplify existing controversies, and, in this case, could end up playing a major role in the court case surrounding Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. This message isn't just public drama, it might be a smoking gun. If the court takes it seriously, it could support accusations that Blake's team was trying to manipulate the situation. The leaked communication, its tone, and its intent could highlight a pattern of behavior that goes beyond mere marketing missteps. The results? Let's just say, for Blake Lively's team, those consequences could be more than just reputation damage. Could Blake Lively really face criminal charges? On the surface, it sounds almost unthinkable. She's an A-lister with an image that practically screams, America's sweetheart. But if the court finds her team's tactics were unethical, or worse, illegal, it could open the door to some very serious consequences. And as uncomfortable as it may be for Hollywood to admit, celebrity status doesn't always guarantee immunity from the law. Here's where things get tricky. The allegations being whispered about Blake's legal team aren't minor missteps. Accusations of improper subpoenas and shady maneuvers tied to Vanzan Inc. could have repercussions beyond just slaps on the wrist. If the court determines their actions overstepped legal boundaries, there's a chance they could fall into 2 major categories of wrongdoing: obstruction of justice or evidence tampering. While those terms might sound dramatic, legal experts will tell you they're not uncommon charges when someone is accused of manipulating or mishandling the system to gain an edge. The idea of evidence tampering is especially explosive in this context. if the leaked messages or subpoenaed texts were obtained through questionable or aggressive strategies. Critics argue it raises the possibility that rules of discovery were violated. What's more, using a shell company like Vanzan to navigate gray areas of the law might only add to the argument that Blake's team was willing to push ethical limits. And we've seen before how the justice system can sharpen its claws on behavior like this. If there's even a traceable hint of intent, charges could escalate quickly. At that point, they're playing with fire. We've all seen what happens when scandals like this blow up. Public trust is fragile, especially when it comes to public figures. The audience that sees Blake Lively as polished, unproblematic, and trustworthy might not respond as kindly if it starts looking like she, or even just her team, was trying to silence critics or orchestrate smear tactics against a co-star like Justin Baldoni. And let's not forget, audiences are paying closer attention to the personal lives of celebrities than ever. In this social media-driven world, one wrong move can become a headline or a hashtag within minutes. And the stakes? They're huge. If this situation spirals any further, we could be looking at one of the most significant PR and legal challenges of Blake's career. Rare as celebrity scandals involving serious legal consequences may be, they're not unheard of. Remember when Lori Loughlin's involvement in the college admissions scandal turned into federal charges? That case proved that even beloved figures aren't untouchable if laws are broken, and it shifted the narrative around her almost overnight. If Blake's legal ordeal continues down this path, her team could be fighting battles on multiple fronts, not just in court, but in the court of public opinion as well. But this isn't just about Blake, it's about Hollywood at large. If the judge's scrutiny leads to rulings against her legal team, it could set a precedent that ripples far beyond this one case. Hollywood's history of floating just above normal rules and ethics might finally face more serious checks. For Blake, this might just be another moment in the spotlight. For the industry, it could signal a new era of accountability. What happens when celebrity tactics finally hit a wall? Only time will tell. This case goes beyond Blake Lively. It's a glimpse into Hollywood's legal playbook, where shell companies like Vanzan Inc. are wielded to control narratives and protect reputations. But here's the real issue. When these questionable tactics surface, how far is too far? With ethical lines being questioned and public opinion growing sharper, this case could force Hollywood to rethink how far it pushes the limits of legality. Now, what do you think? Should celebrities face the same scrutiny as the rest of us when it comes to their courtroom strategies? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget, this story isn't over yet.